for zoning appeals to order.
I did it.
What's that?
Just making sure the recorder was on.
Okay. So the first item is just calling the roll. Jennifer Matthews.
I'm here.
Alex Sharp, I'm here. David Thomas.
I'm here.
Ron McElroy and Chris Bird. So everybody is here.
Although there are birthdays this month.
The first item is the adoption of the meeting agenda. Are there any changes, additions?
Mr. Chair, I suggest that we move the annual meeting requirements, item C, to new business at the bottom,
At the end?
at the end.
Wasn't that?
Okay, if you'd like to do that. Okay.
All right.
Is that seem agreeable to?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, 2 items.
Okay, and also we had
They
the,
left out Ron's thing
yeah,
about
the draft agenda.
Yeah, and I
and letter.
wrote an email about that, and then that's the other thing is that too.
Right, I mean, the draft was emailed everywhere.
All right, so we gotta add that to old business at the end.
Yeah,
So do you want?
After update on the comp plan, we have to add on
Matt
Ron's
was-
letter about Freedom of Information Act.
Ron's FOIA letter? Is that the one?
well, yeah, it's semi-final, but anyway.
And so we'll do the annual meeting and the election or the nomination for the representative to the planning commission at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do all those
Okay,
things.
Annual report.
yeah, that's been done even though the year's not over
Yeah.
yet. No. Okay, then is that
You mean last year's or this year's?
subject to that proposal?
I
That's
move
fine.
that as amended or as supplemented or whatever, that we adopt the agenda.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, did we have the minutes?
Yep.
Yes. I did read the minutes, I didn't see any typos.
Any other errors?
What?
No typos?
I didn't see any, but I only had them for a moment.
Okay.
See, I've learned that if you send them out too early, she finds a lot of stuff. You send them out like 2 hours before the meeting.
Is there any changes, or do we have a motion to adopt the minutes as submitted?
I'll motion to adopt it.
Is there a second to that motion?
Exit 6, Zachary Taylor Expressway.
See, I put that in and I almost got it through.
I don't disagree that it is an expressway with the way that people drive on 522. But
I did that because last month Ron called me on Moon Road or Lane and corrected it, so I put Zachary Taylor Expressway to see if anyone was reading it. And yes.
And then he sent them out an hour ago.
So are we changing that?
I would like to just strike exit 6. We can just leave Zachary Taylor Expressway. We'll get the new supervisors to.
So strike exit 6. Is that all we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is there anything else?
We'll get our supervisors to start doing traffic calming through the county.
Okay, to accept the minutes as submitted with that change, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
Abstain.
You abstain.
I was
Okay,
abstaining
you
from
wrote.
the minutes 'cause I wrote them.
Okay, the first public hearing is Chester Gap Wines LLC Tourism. Are you here?
Yes, I'm Jeff.
Jeff, you could come forward and sit here if you'd like. We'll be
Park.
Okay.
We'll be friendly.
There we go.
No, sorry, not the special use permit. Okay, so you could tell us, you're Jeff,
I'm Jeff Cease, yes,
With-
with Chester Gap Wines.
and you're representing.
Did you bring anyone?
I should have. Would have eased the meeting a little
How do you
bit.
spell it? S-E-E-S-E?
Correct.
So we should recess while guys get started. Okay, so you could just tell us a little bit about what you're planning or would like to do.
Sure. So this property is adjacent to a property that I currently own. It's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home. I purchased it back in July for use of when my family and friends visit my other house. I just can't fit everybody in. Purpose being then is when I'm not using it with my family, to put it on a property site search such as Airbnb and utilize it as a rental. The property is rentable as an entirety. It's not rented as a one bedroom by someone, one bedroom by someone else. It's an entire entity, which is why it qualifies well as a
At
tourist.
least when they get there.
Well, they all have to know each other to rent it, so.
I mean, when they get there, they're all one.
Oh, they're all one, yes.
But maybe not when they leave.
If they leave in separate cars.
It's rented to one person. or
One entity,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
And this is in a neighborhood?
So
Don't you ever go to Chester's Gap?
I'm asking leading questions.
the property actually is within the neighborhood as it was originally designed, but
Okay.
over time, the right-of-way, meaning driveway for this property, is the right-of-way to Chester Gap. There is no access
So
to
it's
this
not a
property
shared
from the
road,
neighborhood.
so it's not a shared road with the neighborhood.
Correct,
What
correct.
roads are them?
It's off of 522.
Is there a name?
Expressway.
No, it's a gravel driveway.
But it serves both Chester Gap sellers and this house?
Yes. So the Chester Gap Cellars was given a right-of-way through this property and Roger McCullough's property, which is 4611. So that gravel driveway services Chester Gap. And the neighborhood blocked off access to this particular property we're talking about, and now it's serviced only by the gravel road.
So there's probably a homeowners association,
There is not.
and there are no covenants or anything?
Correct. There may be for the community. This home does not qualify. It's not in the homeowners association. It's,
Oh, so you know
It's been
that for a
approved.
fact.
Mhm.
And the neighbors are not, I mean, they'd be here probably if they were.
correct.
Two of them approved it.
Yeah, and two of them.
Here's the plan, if anybody wants to see it.
But part of the reason I purchased it as well is because of the right-of-way, that the direct access to my other property is 75%.
Which is your other property?
So if this is
What, it used to come off Virginia Pines, but that's closed off now?
Virginia Pines, that's the one.
Okay, so that's maybe, the entrance is through the winery.
Correct, so this is the road, this easement here, this is the driveway that takes us down to Chester Gap Cellars, is down here. There's one other home over here, which is the McCoys. And then the neighborhood community is over here. So this Virginia Pines Lane, is no longer a road here that would connect this home to Virginia Pines Lane.
So is that what sort of excises it from the neighborhood?
What's this? What's this little triangle?
Yeah, so this is my other
Oh,
property.
there's a separate easement. Oh, so this is your,
This is my property. All back.
and how many acres is this?
62 total, 58 in Rappahannock County, 4 in Warren
What's the zoning on this, agriculture?
County. No, it's a village.
Village residential.
For this property we're talking about? That's what you're saying, yeah.
Doesn't Fauquier come up to that point someplace?
For wine?
So,
There is a place where it's worn
it is,
Fauquier and
and
Rappahannock.
it was on this property.
It was on this property,
But
okay.
Fauquier County, because they had no way to service it or access it other than going all the way through Rappahannock or all the way through Warren.
So
They
they,
wrote a sending letter to the
Oh,
county.
they let it go.
Yeah, so I only pay property taxes for the other properties in Warren and Rappahannock. Similarly, this property has a small sliver that's in Warren County.
I was gonna say, so that explains, because
This,
it's,
which property has a small?
This house.
This little,
did Captain Nealon own this at one time? I mean, Captain
I
Nealon.
know Dustin Tennis, who I bought it from, and then Jason Burrows was before that.
I'd say the interesting part is, this was their surveyor, apparently they wrote it up this way, but it's in the Happy Creek Magisterial District in Rappahannock County.
Ah, yes, we all know that. That's exit 1, expressway.
It's our small little district.
Is it
No,
any,
it's in Warren.
is it any
So,
other?
wait a minute, I got a question about this right away. This,
Yeah.
so this, where this is going now,
Yes, this is 522 right here.
Okay.
And actually,
And who's
the
this
right of
lot?
way exits into Warren County.
It is, the mailbox
Right.
sits in Warren County.
What's the back one arrow? That says which way? North is what, that way? This way?
This is
There.
north right here, up here. You're pointing north, south.
So this little triangle.
Where's, does this show the, oh, this is the county line or no?
This is the county line, this gold line here. This little encroachment here, that's the fence for Roger and Pat.
So who else uses this road, is what I'm getting
There,
at,
so
besides you?
They're, one other person, Roger and Pat.
These?
Yep. Correct. And
But
their
they have road
Their
traffic?
driveway's right here.
And all the winery traffic.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's him.
And so I maintain the road.
So you own the winery too?
I do.
And that's what's over here?
It is, yes.
Does that answer your questions so far? Is it any other questions?
Well, wait a minute, well, I do have one other question. So if you needed to make this right of way bigger, you could do it. I mean, what's on this little lot, teeny little triangle, nothing?
Trees. And it's pretty steep slope. This is on the side, we are beginning the side of the mountain right here.
So this is where it starts to fall off?
So it undulates right here, and then right here is where we drop off. So I have a steep
Continuously
driveway.
undulates? Like while you're driving on it? or-
Like that.
That's after the wine.
This-
Yeah, don't take it.
Watch out, they didn't tell you, I'm a lawyer, so.
So,
But my question is, so if you need to make this 20 feet bigger, you could dedicate this little slice to it, right?
On that side of the line,
Hmm.
yes.
So
On this side of the line, I'd have to talk
how
about.
big is it now, 30 feet?
It's only 30 feet.
Chris, did the planning commission have anything notable?
They didn't.
Okay.
How long are the stays gonna be of the people that come in?
How many days?
So it's through the Airbnb app, so it's that
Minimum one night?
minimum one night.
But it could be for several days, it could be for a week, it could be for a month.
It could be. Yes.
But typically,
Typically, they're, what I've seen in other properties, I mean, when I go, I rent for a weekend. I mean, I guess it would
Less
become
than-
possible.
I think he's getting at less than a week, right?
Most of them are gonna be less than a week.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
Okay.
it's hard to know what they're gonna be until the people apply to rent.
Okay,
You know, they get what they get when they get it.
sure.
Normally, the rates are such that they're not conducive to long-term rentals. That's why I'd say short-term rental.
Okay, does that,
I don't have no question.
any more
I
questions?
don't think.
Tell the public.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is it anybody who wishes to speak on this application? Okay,
They're over at the high school.
yeah, yeah, they're being recorded over there. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Okay, now the planning commission had come up with the typical, oh, there they are. Okay. What did it say?
Move the BZA.
We have
Pay attention to the right of way.
Thank you, I
Okay,
didn't even
that's
see that
screening.
before.
Okay, well, you were asking the questions I couldn't do. Now, the right of way, we can waive the requirement for the 50 feet, that's.
I think it says, it doesn't say at present, it doesn't say it must be, it says it should be,
Should be.
but the BZA can waive that under appropriate conditions, and I don't see why we wouldn't, since there's nobody else that,
I was gonna say,
only one other landowner, and they're not objecting, and they're one of the ones that are mentioned, I saw there, that support your application.
They do, Roger and Pat,
Roger and Pat, who,
McCully.
did they write anything?
Roger
Well,
works,
they've been.
Roger works with me in the vineyard. And
Oh,
Pat's
So I would
housekeeper.
probably not be politically correct. Okay.
You could always
I was gonna say that
reserve
right-
20
that right
feet
away
that
is-
you know that if you want to expand or
Well,
something, you have that 50
Doesn't
feet.
sound like we're gonna
Oh, that's it?
go through all that.
Just mentally
I
reserve.
saw that, but it's not signed.
And then typically we have these safety
Yeah,
things, and we've got those.
safety features, working smoke
Where
detectors,
is that?
carbon monoxide
I
detectors.
believe that's already in the,
Yeah, it's in the packet that,
Okay.
I was gonna say, as far as the right of way goes, it's been servicing the winery for, since the winery's been there, with no problems, and it's a well-maintained right of way.
Okay.
Isn't the winery in Warren County?
No, that's in Rappahannock as well.
It is.
He said
The entrance
4
is there.
acres.
We got
Okay.
money.
So
That's right.
I would be looking for a motion that includes the waiving of the right-of-way requirement, or not requirement, but just indicating that we waive that, and then adding safety issues.
you know,
And there's nothing else, is there? I mean, if anybody would like to submit that
How
motion.
about, you always ask about the telephone, do you have a telephone in?
yeah,
Rappahannock?
I thought that's one of the requirements.
it's supposed, but I'm not seeing that on here. It's got
It says
emergency,
phone,
this is emergency contact, sheriff's office phone number, owner's contact information, and permitted noise levels. Chester's got.
so you want to add a working landline?
So we
Does
generally
it,
work
does
with
it have a
that.
landline?
I have internet right there, right now, I don't have.
So it's like the Wi-Fi thing?
I think the idea is a landline, so someone could call for help if
I
they need.
mean, and
Well,
And then part of that has to do with more down here, the location of that home is such, number one, they're right underneath the tower on Chester Gap, plus they've got a view that goes forever, meaning that they've got, I'm sure every cell phone in the world will work up there. It's where everyone in Rappahannock would want to live that has a cell phone.
Because you actually get,
Oh, I lose my service right there. I guess I lose service right there.
Well, you're not gonna probably stay there.
So-
That's because you didn't pay the bill.
Okay, are you then interested in making a motion
I'll make the motion that
Okay.
you asked to have made.
with the safety requirements?
With the state of
We're not-
Rappahannock.
we're not-
But like I said,
Wait a minute, no, you're not gonna have any signs?
It says a visible reflective address sign on the property.
visible reflective.
You know, those fire department.
In other words,
signs.
it's not going to be a big sign announcing a tourist home, it's just going to be an address.
It is just an address,
Okay,
yes.
sounds like.
and is that, well, in this situation also, is that address sign off of the right of way, basically at the drive?
So
At the driveway?
there's the mailbox in 522 has the address on it, and then
But
once
that's
you
the
come
Warren
down,
County, right?
it is, but
I
then
think
once you
it's-
come down the driveway, there's
I
a
think
small
it's-
fence post that has the address.
Oh, okay, that's a directional.
But mainly
On
we're
the
interested
driveway,
in
yeah.
identifying, okay. So
And
the,
if you change ownership or if you sell it, you're okay with it, the permit terminating?
so this would be during your
During my
ownership,
tenure.
and it's you as a person?
No.
It's, oh, the LLC.
I bought it as the LLC.
Okay, I got you, okay. So that's the motion we've got. You got it, David?
I got it.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds like you got it.
great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Now, what else do you produce?
Dave, what's today's date?
19.
The 19th. Okay, so the next item is
Thank you.
Mount Vernon Farm LLC tourist home. Is someone here to represent? Okay,
It's going to be on the permit.
you're welcome to go to another chair. Okay.
Okay, which one is it? Oh, here.
Now, I do. I'm just to ask a question, we have two applications for virtually the same thing, correct?
Right.
Okay, so would the board be okay with hearing both of them as one?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we're just going to do both. Okay, well, if you'd like to just describe for us briefly what you're looking at.
Yeah, we've been here once before, and that's the issue we have. hung up on was the,
Yes,
whether they require subdivision.
And I think we may have some ideas about that may be helpful. But anyway,
well,
So where are we now?
Waiting for you guys to come in.
okay, so,
Michelle wrote a letter, and I wrote a letter as well.
so this was tabled from last month?
Mhm.
Okay, and so I think I understand enough about what was happening. So Michelle had written a determination that she felt that each tourist home would require a 10-acre parcel.
The last letter I wrote
No, I got a letter from you.
It's 2 acres. What I interpreted from her, but it was hard to.
What did you? Okay. Michelle, which was it, 10 or 2?
If you read my letter, I call your attention that it's 10.
10 acres, okay, that's what I was thinking. But, okay, I mean, I guess it could be, oh no, you were saying 10 acres because that's the minimum.
Because it's the minimum for a tourist home.
Okay,
But then I read in that letter that it said it could be combined with the lot next to it. Did I misstate that?
I don't know. I don't know. Could be attached to the adjoining, well, oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
I was
Well,
unclear.
I think we are dealing at that point with previously divided lots. And in this situation, we are dealing with an undivided
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
area of, from what I gather, something like 571 acres.
Is that the-
And without any other, other buildings on it, other residential.
I'll clear it up for you. It's 790 acres and there are 2 structures on it. One
Right
is-
now, there's
And they have water.
One is Waterpenny, and that's the main house, and then there's also a tenant house for the workers at Waterpenny.
So it's over on that side?
Yeah,
No,
this is
on
only-
the other side of the road, but
The parcel includes that side.
So it's on both sides of
Yeah.
211.
So like where you go to your barn and is it off that road?
no,
You're talking Waterpenny or the other?
No.
part?
this is before you get to that. If you did a U-turn or you drove right straight in from Old Hollow,
Yeah.
but you go in the other direction, up the
Get
hill,
away from Old Hollow.
And there isn't a road there yet.
there's no road yet.
So they, okay.
It would have its own access road.
That
But
goes
It's right
down
close
to
to Mary
11.
Settle's property.
Yes.
but on this thing, you can see Gary's place.
I mean, it does seem like a good objective not to subdivide property, I would say. But am I correct that the ordinance allows more than one dwelling per parcel with a special exception? Isn't that correct? That is your understanding? So, I mean, that's what I was just thinking. I mean, it could be done, but I think it would require a special exception if it's considered to be a dwelling.
Did you read his letter?
The letter,
Yes, yes,
the question of primary.
primary dwelling.
and-
Principle is the word.
Principles. And the principle, there is no principle that does what
Tourist
that
home.
principle says. And
Right.
the only thing there is over at Waterpenny, and they only are principal for 30 acres that they rent from.
Right. So,
Is that 30 acres, that's the whole tract, part of the tract that's on the north side of 211?
that they're
No,
renting,
that's a lot more, but
they're
the
renting.
30
They're just
acres
renting.
are renters, yeah.
And they've
But
got,
that's
obviously,
not subdivided, but the part that they're renting is not a separate
it's just a
lot.
rent, but not an ownership. So what I was just wondering, I mean, we can discuss this further, but I thought that the intent for tourist homes and bed and breakfast was typically to utilize existing structures. But I don't think that's set in concrete. But the fact that a tourist home could easily be, if you just discontinued that use, what would it become? Become a
It
house.
could be a rental
Well,
house.
Right,
So that was raised in your letter, or the point you raised, but a The only, in a dwelling unit, that is a structure that can live in. It's got kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, it can be a home. And the tourist home meets those same specifications, and that I assume that these structures you're building are gonna have a kitchen
Well,
unit incorporated in the building.
what was said from Madge that there could not be any food preparation.
Well, that's different, yeah, but not food preparation by them, right? I mean, that's.
I don't think that's applicable, but I do think
No, but
that
it
there's, I mean, there's specific code, language in the law that says anything that has
Under the
people coming and going is not considered a
Well,
dwelling unit.
Under the definition of a tourist home, the days that the people are staying are longer, and because of that, tourist homes normally have kitchens because people
Well,
come
would
and
have a
they
kitchen.
prepare food there, they perform breakfast.
I think
whatever
the
it is.
preparation
they
Madge is
wish.
talking about is you're not preparing food.
Oh, no.
That's what
But-
she's referring to.
I mean, it's the fact that you can take a tourist home, if it's not working out, and turn it into a long-term rental, no problem.
Right.
And the facility is such that it can be either or.
Yeah, I mean, that is the issue that I was wondering about, and, anyway.
I think what Alex is talking about in section 170, 36A, more than one dwelling on a lot or parcel is a special exception permit in an agriculture zone, whereas a tourist home is only a special permit from the BZA, special use permit. So,
But he,
and that's, I think it's a fact that we haven't had this kind of a situation where they weren't built. Almost probably 90 or 95% of the tourist home applications are, it's an existing, house. It's already a dwelling unit and they just want to use it for this kind of additional use. Whereas here, you're basically putting, well, I don't know if you're gonna subdivide or not, I didn't hear the answer to that yet. If you're gonna, I think what Alex is suggesting, if you're gonna subdivide it and make 2 10-acre lots, if that gets approved, you're okay, but if you're not gonna subdivide it, and you're gonna propose to have it, which is what I suggested last time, I don't see why you can't do that, why you can't, look at the one that we
prefer
approved.
not to subdivide.
yeah.
Okay,
that's
so
what I
like,
was
look at the
talking-
one we did last month, which was the one at exit 6 on Zachary Taylor Highway there. That is the old Recal property, they got a barn, they got a caretaker's house, and then they had a principal dwelling. And they were turning one of those 3 things into a tourist home. And they already had another principal dwelling there, how all that stuff got there, frankly, I'm not sure, but anyway, that's what we did. And we approved it, but it was already there. But here, I don't have a problem with doing of it without subdividing, but I think, I don't know,
I was gonna say that
I haven't decided, I haven't figured out if it's only gonna be a special, or it's only gonna be a tourist home, and you're never gonna use it as a regular dwelling, which seems to me kind of something you can't really predict at the present.
That was a long time.
Well, what if the tourist home business doesn't work out, or what if,
Something.
Trump gets reelected and price of gas goes up to $20 a gallon and nobody can afford to come out here anymore, so you're gonna have to rent it, or, whatever. Or maybe you'll have to move into it, I don't know.
Well,
But the point is, there's gonna ever be a dwelling, which frankly, I think a tourist home is a type of dwelling. If you're gonna have more than one dwelling on a lot, you need an SE permit from the Board of Supervisors.
And I would propose that we would approve this conditionally upon either subdivision, as Michelle suggested, or obtaining a special exception to allow the use without subdividing. And I feel like that would accommodate your preference, which I think would probably be the county's preference. And a special exception, that doesn't seem like that would be particularly controversial.
What's it, 648?
Yeah, it seemed like that was it.
And it's under conservation,
Yeah.
So, that seems like something that would be pretty
It seems like what we're doing here is either permitting or not permitting the use as a tourist home.
But we have Michelle's ruling, and I understand your position. I mean, but we do have that ruling that I don't think has been appealed.
Well, they just came
No,
out.
just-
Oh, it just came out, okay. But anyway, we have that ruling, and I think that's a way of dealing with that,
Well,
if that,
my thinking on it is, number one, by right, they could build the two structures and for long-term rental.
no.
No, they
No,
have to get an
they need a
SE permit.
They
They have
need a
an
special
SE permit
exception.
for that, okay.
To have more than one dwelling on a tractor parcel, yeah.
So if they build it as a tourist home, if they want to
Michelle has said they have to subdivide.
go from that to a long-term rental, that would require that they come back and get a special exemption.
No, Michelle has said they can subdivide, Ron, Michelle has said they can subdivide it
But that's,
and get it under that condition. They,
Oh, yes, I understand that, but if they don't subdivide it, what are our options?
Well, it seems
that's
to
what I'm
me
saying.
our option would be to allow the use, as Alex has already said, we allow the use as a tourist home and subject to the special exception of the two buildings on one parcel
you
of
mean sort
land.
of contingent upon.
Contingent upon that. And so basically, we're not involved in the subdivision of the land. We're involved in the use of the
structures.
structures. And if they don't want to have a tourist home and they get their subdivision special exception, they can use it as long-term rental, they can live in it themselves,
Well,
Right.
they can do anything else, because that's what the special exception is all about. We're just about the use once it is allowed.
So you're talking about they could go get permission to build the houses, then we give them these special?
No,
Actually,
we can-
that to me, I mean, even from your standpoint, would make more sense, because then you can go anywhere you want with it.
But they
You
can also,
long-term rent it, or you can.
But they
use it-
want to
They're
use
gonna
it.
do that.
We are not
absolutely.
doing this, we're doing this to try to bring in tourists to
Oh, I
Rappahannock
understand that.
County and not, I don't want
Yeah, they're
two
not.
houses sitting up there that we're renting.
They're not
down.
looking.
No,
I mean, this
but
might
what we were
come
saying
as a
is
surprise,
down the road.
but what happens if something happens to you?
Well, he's,
Okay, what if something happens to him and somebody else owns it?
Well,
That doesn't want to do that and wants to have long-term housing and doesn't want to have tourists.
yeah, that's the
I mean,
only
so
thing is the,
It's really not, I mean,
yeah, well,
but that isn't our business. Our business is
well,
allowing the special use permit or not allowing that. And at this point, it seems to me, Alex's idea of giving them the special use permit contingent on
Yeah.
getting the,
SE permit.
well, either
Special
subdividing it or getting a special exception.
and at that point,
Is that,
it seems like everybody is happy. And the use, if it gets subdivided at some further date, it is subject to whatever the lot size and
Or the
everything
can
else.
you subdivide it into 10 acres if it's an easement?
we're allowed to cluster, but we've got to go by the rules
Oh, you are, oh, okay.
of the county.
Because, I mean, this is temporary lodging that they're proposing to bring folks out from the city. They can't stay up at Chester's Gap, they can stay down there near Brookbank. And so, it's, in one sense, it's not a dwelling, because it's not the whole family-like thing. And,
No, I don't agree with that
Yeah,
part.
I
I think it
don't
is a
agree with
dwelling unit because it's designed and arranged, it's got a kitchen and bathroom and sleeping accommodations, so it's a dwelling unit. The question is it the owner occupied, or is it rented out, or is it,
But I
if
think
it's rented out week by week, it's still it's a single family residence, and every week a different single family moves in and then moves out. But That's my view of it. So
So-
I think it is it does, if you read the definition in the ordinance of dwelling unit, I think
It says the code goes even further to state the term dwelling should not be construed to be a motel, rooming house, hospital, or other accommodations used for transient.
occupancy.
See, that's the key there, though, it's the transient thing, is that all of the described options there, hotels, motels, whatever, they traditionally do not have kitchens units. They are
It says transient occupancy,
sleeping.
that's exactly what a tourist home is.
No, we're not disagreeing with that.
Yeah, we're not.
Well, then in
There's
which
no-
case, we don't need to,
Well, no, but what
Special exception.
what we're talking about is it's building a dwelling, even though you're using it as something other than a dwelling. I agree with that.
Yeah,
The problem we're having here is, we've never done anything like this before. So you are new ground to plow. And so normally, you have an existing building and that has been used as a residence at some point, and the owners are applying for a tourist home. Here, you are applying for a tourist, you're kind of putting the cart before the horse compared to everything else we've dealt with. But I feel that by giving the special use permit, this allows you to apply for and build the building with the knowledge that you can then use it as a
Or the
tourist
use
home
that you want.
at a later date. And so that you're not going to come up after you build it and no, you can't use it for that. So that
would be
this
where-
basically helps your planning process and construction process, so there are no surprises.
But we also have an opinion from the zoning administrator that she sees it as the requirement for 2 lots. And that's, I mean,
But the
we've got
special,
to, I think, talk about that because the letter is written and a second letter is written.
but Ron, I think that if they got a special exception to have 2 more dwellings on that big parcel,
Okay.
that would fulfill, I'm assuming,
That's the question.
that would meet her needs.
She's happy?
I
As
mean,
long as it complies,
and that
that's
would.
all I ask.
Yeah, that's the main thing, the zoning administrator has to be happy.
But that
I
would,
speak from experience.
but that is a way of making it comply with the ordinance. You don't have to subdivide it. And I mean, the process, I would not think would be too onerous to get the special exception because of the size of the property and the fact that the density fully
And you
allows
get that from the board?
Board of Supervisors.
If your business plan doesn't work out and you want to make it into rentals. Now, if they wanted to make it into tenant housing, is tenant
That's
housing?
the same thing.
Tenant
Yeah,
housing,
it's-
I think, as
It
well.
doesn't matter
Okay.
if,
But
who's
long-term.
living there. That's long-term, that's
Yeah.
not a
But,
tourist.
Okay.
but I feel
Unless they're
like we could
tourists that don't-
also,
Unless they're only the tenants only come and work there for the weekend. and they'll leave.
I feel like we could give you the option of complying with Michelle's subdivision also. And if you somehow find that that's preferable, that would be,
It would give you
You
an
could do that.
alternative. It doesn't cost
In the
anything,
future.
you don't have
No,
to do
well,
it, you,
yeah, I don't know about in the future, because that, you still have to apply for the subdivision.
Yeah.
So, but to go through that process and subdivide is gonna take a little while and expense compared to the
What
special
you have right
exception,
now.
which would not, I
May I
mean,
Especially,
ask, could we apply for a permit to use these as tourist homes? And if we ever did decide we wanted to turn them from tourist homes, which we agreed are transient
then you
occupancy?
come back for a
And
special
we would have
exception
to come
But-
back for a special exception
to
to
the
turn
board
them
of supervisors.
but the only problem is that sets
into
up,
rentals.
that sets up a potential conflict. Because it's almost like it would be a huge loss to you if you came back and said, hey, we want to make these into houses, and what if for some reason somebody said no. I mean, that does.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to get to, is that if we do it as a special use permit, I would say it doesn't go with the land, it goes with the ownership. So if you sell,
Well,
the
not
special
necessarily.
use doesn't necessarily transfer, and it's up to the next owners to come back and reapply for.
I don't think you can do that either. That's why I think it's gotta be conditional on getting the SE permit now, or subdividing it.
Or subdividing.
Or subdividing, because otherwise you're setting up the situation where it's gonna be confiscatory. They're gonna have built these two houses, and for whatever reason, like what I said, maybe tourism becomes uneconomic, and they're stuck with these two houses, and now they can't move into them themselves or use them as a long-term. That's crazy, because that's the usual, the opposite of what we always have.
There's an interesting.
It's a less
and I hadn't
intensive
thought
use
about it.
supposedly, and it's not commercial.
The conservation easement only allows 6 subdivisions in the whole
Right,
600 acres.
but I mean, you are allowed to cluster them, so you
Yes,
could actually
you are
do
allowed
this.
to cluster.
So I mean, they could do it.
Yeah, but what if they wanna cluster somewhere else? Anyways,
But I mean, that's what I'm just saying is, I don't think it would be a good idea to set up something that creates that level of conflict in the future if we can possibly avoid it, and I think we can easily avoid it. And it'd probably be less expense to you. And I don't know if it'll be less time. Have you surveyed these 10-acre lots?
We were right, but not to have to.
Yeah, yeah,
Subdivide and do all
So,
that.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
So
still
you,
think the law's on their side. I
yeah,
mean, do we agree that this is either not or is a principal dwelling? I mean, the whole thing hinges on that.
I think what I'm hearing and what I feel is that it's not necessarily right now being proposed to be a principal dwelling, but it would convert to a principal dwelling immediately upon your discontinuing the tourist home. Because it becomes a dwelling. I don't,
no, it's a secondary dwelling. The principal dwelling is Waterpenny's house, right?
And I would argue
saying
that's
not.
not, because
What?
the
He's saying
principal
not.
dwelling, they say, this letter said, is the major business of that 600 acres, and Waterpenny is nowhere near the major business of that.
Yeah, so I mean,
But it's the only other dwelling on it, right?
That, that and another dwelling at her house.
So what does this say? Does this say principal dwelling or just
No.
dwelling?
This is secondary dwelling at the Waterpenny farm.
We could build these straight up as long as we didn't go past 1 per 50 density.
If you get, if
Yeah,
it's special
there's
exception.
nothing in there about a
Look, right
special
here.
exception.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
You're reading a different law than I read, because
No, it's
That's why I'm on the board of zoning
house,
appeals.
more than one dwelling per parcel.
17036A lists the various uses that are permitted, and that's the residential section, and about the 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's the only thing is.
Sixth one down, more than one dwelling on a lot or parcel. SE, 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 and SP in commercial village, and SP in commercial general, and SP in highway commercial. So you're none of those, so you're an SE permit in agriculture or conservation.
Which number are you reading?
It's,
170-36A.
So the one in her letter was 170-28, which doesn't say.
well, that's relating to the tourist home, right, the 10 acres,
No, I don't think so.
or what she came up with.
28 is limitation on number of dwellings on a lot, unless otherwise permitted, which it isn't. Not more than one dwelling unit shall hereafter be erected on any one lot, unless the resultant dwelling density is less than one dwelling unit per 50 acres. Nor shall a dwelling unit be located on the same lot with any other principal building except as an accessory use, as may be permitted by the provisions of Article 6 or 7. Well, anyways, it's a special exception used to get more than one dwelling on a lot. So that's
I mean,
that's the part that you have to read that together with 170-28,
I
I
mean,
think.
we could even go so far as to word it if required. Because-
Sure, I mean, she's already said that it's required.
No, did you say a special exception is required to do this? Did you
I don't think
address?
she
I did not
addressed
address that.
She did not address that. So,
Well, as I said before, I'm an advocate of not subdividing anything, and I'm not in favor of forcing them to subdivide, and they don't want to subdivide, so, and PS, I don't agree with whatever the ruling is, that if they do subdivide, that it could be 10 acres I think it's gotta be 25 acres. But if they're not, that's just another reason I don't wanna push them in that direction, so and plus the cost of getting an SE permit is way less than the cost of getting it surveyed and all that.
Yeah,
And
because
the
the
time and
survey
so forth
is,
and so on.
And plus, that way you can go.
And then you're free to do basically whatever you want, and if at some future time you do want to subdivide it, well then, all my suggestion would be make them far enough apart so you can meet the setback requirements, but then you don't have to worry
but
about
the
it.
setback isn't that far away, is it 100?
50 feet, I think, on the sides.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you should have, how far apart
Yeah,
are
you're
they
talking
proposed to
150
be?
feet.
They're around 125 to 150, depending on
I
where.
just make sure.
But you haven't done anything yet,
There's
so
nothing there.
that
Yeah,
can
flags
be-
up.
Now, what about the issue of a site plan? Is that any question?
On that particular property.
Well, they sort of said-
That's a-
We gave you, no, that's not a very good.
Okay, but,
The amount of acreage there.
but we could up the quality of the site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a permit, we can pay somebody to do it.
Yeah, no,
Not
that- I mean, I
something.
understand that, yeah. So we don't have to hold it up for that, but we could request something.
I think we're gonna make it a condition that before they get a building permit,
There's like-
after they get, when they apply for their SE permit for more than one dwelling on a lot, you're gonna have to go back to the planning commission and then the board's, you're gonna have to do a better thing than that, I'm just telling you. In case you didn't already know, but I mean, there's a
But
whole section in the.
I feel like we can likely, unless there's some other problem I don't know about, we can likely approve the special use permit so you don't have to come back to us. And then just subject, I mean, if that seems like a reasonable, I think we're inclined.
I think that's very reasonable, and
But I
at
mean-
this point, in some ways, the ball is in their court.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
I
can do
feel like-
whatever
You
they
have
want.
to get the special exception permit, and with the site
Then
plan
you
and
know-
whatever else.
You know you can do it.
Yeah, and then you have the go-ahead from the BZA to do the, and it would seem that that would accommodate everything you needed to do.
Do we apply for 2 or 1?
Well, you're applying, well, you
No,
may be
just
able to do
one.
one,
No.
I mean,
It's up to the zoning administrator, because that
but
doesn't come to us.
I
that
could
goes-
potentially see one application to put 2 dwellings, 2 more.
It says
dwellings.
more than one, so
Yeah.
2 is more than one.
So I mean, that would, you know, simple.
3 is more than one, I think. So I think,
But
yeah,
once you get over 4, it becomes less than 1. right?
So what stipulations are we recommending for us to vote on?
Well, are we going to have a motion? Did we-
Well, that's what I want to see us get into the,
Oh, you know what, hold on, before I do a motion,
do we ever have the public?
we need the
hearing?
public hearing.
Good, that would be-
Okay, we're done with the immediate questions, is that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm opening the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this application? No?
I'm in favor.
She's in favor. Okay.
Who are you?
Anita
Good
Ramos.
looking woman.
No, not you.
This is Anita.
Anita Ramos, Richmond Road. You guys, I think, worked it out so that it's going to be acceptable to everybody involved. The best thing is not subdividing the property. And that gives them, and making this, doing this special exemption will give them the latitude if they change their minds about what they want to do with the property later on. But they'll know they'll be able to do it without going through another, shall we say, hassle. So, yeah, I think you guys have come out, but it sounds like a reasonable answer, and go ahead. And they could always build one building like 5 feet bigger than the other one and call it primary residence if everyone would feel better about it.
Very good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Okay, I'm closing the public hearing. I'd be interested to hear a motion, if we can put that into words. I think what I'm hearing is we would approve this special use permit. Both, I mean, there are 2 permits in one.
right,
Both permits would be approved,
correct.
subject to either subdividing as per Michelle's
December 5th letter,
December 5th letter, or
SE permit for,
obtaining a special exception permit from the county. And then the other, special exception, what did I say? After special
It's
exception.
special exception.
And then the other thing would just be that there are these safety,
The typical
there's a
safety.
safety checklist, and I think in Sperryville, unless you got a cell phone tower sooner, I don't know, that you have a landline.
That'll be very nice.
Landline,
The
okay.
landlines, yeah.
Is somebody willing to?
You got a cell phone tower, it just doesn't have anything on it.
Is there someone willing to?
I'll make that motion.
Jennifer made that motion, is there a second?
I'll say.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Jennifer.
And Ron seconded.
No sign?
You know what?
Signs, no kind of a sign
Just-
down on the road that
I
says
don't think we'll need any
Miller
additional
Tourist
signage.
Homes,
But
turn
something
here.
that, you can have something that marks the address.
It'll have the same entrance as the farm, and there'll be, there's a sign there that says Mount Vernon Farm.
So the existing sign,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Existing.
I was gonna say they will have addresses, so,
There'll be signage inside the property, but not on the road.
Okay.
What's
Is it
the other
any,
thing?
any further discussion?
How long are people gonna stay there? More than a week or less?
No idea. It's
Anywhere from one night
anywhere from
to,
one
It'd be
night
nice
to-
if it's more than a week.
Yeah, we have people stay at the bed and breakfast for 14 nights, so it's difficult to say.
okay, but
The average stay is 2 nights.
okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain for the usual reason.
His reason is because of the
Doesn't meet
number
the
of days.
definition of existing.
And they're not changing
And
it, but that's okay. Okay, so you've got
Okay.
Thank you.
permit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
This was just to show you where,
We have
I
our
wasn't
color
trying to say
picture.
that's a site plan at all.
Right.
I just
been a long time.
to those two.
I'll
Good start.
well,
This is,
Right, that's the main.
oh, how,
Oh,
this is,
that's yours. Yours. Should have put this.
Thank
on.
you all. Okay, happy.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
thank you. Nice to see you.
Okay, that's two permits.
Thank
And that's, did you put both numbers on here?
No, but we'll
Whatever
copy
works.
it. I guess here, just sign it and all right.
Yeah, make sure we got the two. And then
Both
Ron,
of them.
Ron, you're.
Give you this back. Thank you.
I'll leave that down there.
Hats, clubs, books, notebooks, make sure you take them off.
All right, I'm just gonna write same as, what is it, SUP 19, what's the other one?
What's included
10?
is the other one.
01 or
There's
9?
1002 and
1001? 0902? What is the numbering system?
there's,
All right, happy holidays.
There's 09.
there's 0902.
You be sitting.
Okay, got it. I got it.
There's 1002.
I got it, right.
Okay.
All right. And,
Oh, this is another one? Oh, I see, okay, I got you. And who motioned by Jennifer?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's the second by
What happened to that?
Ackland.
We're having the first vote sheet.
Okay.
You put it away in the folder and
No, I didn't put it in.
No,
I
Ron
mean, the
got it,
second
he's
one.
got it. right there.
You got one or two?
He's got it on the top of his pile of papers.
Oh, how'd that get there? Thank you. It wasn't all, the hands are on top of it. There you go.
Okay, the next item, update on the comprehensive plan. Chris, do you have?
I don't know how much update you want. We had a work session. I think we've met since the work session.
No, that was just a week ago.
The-
We didn't.
Okay,
We met after the
meeting
supervisor.
with the supervisors, rather. There was a work session which addressed the 12 or 14 bullet points that the Berkeley group suggested needed addressing, and at least half of them were avoided or not dealt with particularly. And but there is going to be another work session, I imagine sometime next month, early next month, which will wrap up the with Locke, the comprehensive plan, which will then have a kind of final planning commission meeting in January, and I can imagine a supervisor, first, I think we're going to do 2 supervisor meetings on it. And the first one will probably be February, the February supervisor meeting. And these are all
Next year.
next year.
Yeah,
And they'll have it in the bag by next December.
2020, okay. Okay. And then the annual report, it's not the end of the year yet, but I'll be.
How far along are you?
I'm
Making good progress? huh?
11/12 of the way through the year. Okay.
And Macula.
Now, Ron, we were putting in your letter, and you had written a letter to the supervisors.
Yeah, that's what we had agreed to talk about doing
Yeah.
this.
That, so I wasn't gonna look at my stuff, I've had that problem before.
Now, did you,
Yeah, wait,
Chris has the other one.
As I said, I should have made copies for everyone, but.
Oh, you did?
Screwed up.
Okay.
Because
Table it.
I did email it.
No, it's fine, I read it.
Basically, it's just, it's a clarification of
Now, is this,
the state code, because it is, and quite honestly, I had a hard time finding it, Michelle helped me out there, is that the actual confidentiality wording is in the FOIA regulations. It's not anywhere, you can't find it anywhere in the zoning regulations, but it is in the FOIA regulations.
You should know that as our FOIA officer.
Well, I do now.
Okay, so,
Continuing process.
does this incorporate some of the edits that Mr. Connick put in? Or is this,
Did who put in?
well, he had written back,
Oh, you-
he had some,
Did you say you had some
edits.
comments on it?
Well, I made some edits, so I don't know which version. that
Oh,
is.
because I never got those, or.
Oh, I sent them to you.
Yours was double, triple spaced, and Ron's was single spaced.
now, this,
2 iterations of it.
this was one specific member who was speculating, is that the deal?
Well, situation, yes.
And was it at a public meeting?
It was through emails, FOIA-able emails.
That this member speculated on this?
Correct.
Okay.
But that really doesn't matter. What matters, I think, is Ron's idea that that kind of speculation shouldn't be, or the confidentiality ought to be
Right.
maintained.
It was an effort by a public official to identify someone who had made a complaint which should have been confidential.
Now, did he knew he was speculating, or he knew? He speculated.
It's irregardless, I mean,
Oh,
it's
okay.
inappropriate.
There's no
either
word
way.
of such as regardless, but anyway.
Excuse me.
He was quoted as saying that there was speculation that it was a certain person. But I mean, my view of it is, and the thing that we want to discuss about putting in there is, I think that what FOIA says is some public documents are open to the public and available, and others are definitely not, like for example, medical records or child student type things in the school are definitely not. And then there's another category that are up to the discretion of the custodian of the records whether to disclose it or not disclose it. So certain like police type things are in that category, and also building and zoning complaints are in that category. So it's up to the, and also personnel discussions about appointing people, or people resigning, or people's salaries and all that stuff. They may do it in closed session, and they may withhold the documents on it to protect someone's confidentiality. They don't have to, it's up to their discretion. And so this falls in that same category, that they're confidential unless the custodian of the records decides in their wisdom to release it. And so I know that the zoning office has been following the policy of not releasing anything. And that's their discretion to do it. But it seems to me, in this particular instance, or any instance of a zoning complaint, the decision to waive confidentiality is either up to, I'm not sure, it's too bad Mr. Curry's not here, because I know he's sure about stuff like this, of whether the zoning office, since the zoning administrator is an agent of the Board of Supervisors, seems to me like the custodian of the records is really the county administrator. And so it's up to, and those records belong to the board, because the zoning administrator, is an agent of the board. So therefore, if that discretion is going to be waived, it's a decision the whole board has to make, not some individual on the board who may or may not become aware of it. And I think that's the point that needs to be made, that it shouldn't. First of all, I think the zoning office or whatever, they ought to say that that's their policy. That, you know, I mean, they ought to.
And I think it is that what happened and what happened is the email was sent, but then when it was FOIA'd, the name was redacted before the email was released, but the individual that had provided that also provided that information to the newspaper.
Well,
And who did the email go out to? Because I don't think I got it.
No, the email, that particular email went from the supervisor to Gary Curry. And then when it was FOIA'd, the name was redacted out of it. But it was the fact that the individual that sent the email felt it was important to provide that information
To Gary Kirk.
to Gary Curry, but that is not the way it's supposed to work. And like I said, at the same time it was released, you know, he released that information to the newspaper.
So had he not emailed and had he just, I guess
yeah, I agree with you. I think I do.
With me.
No, you didn't exactly say what you're saying. But I think what you're saying is the document that was in the hands of the county. I mean, first of all, the facts of it, as I later found out or understand, is there wasn't a complaint.
No.
So if somebody makes a complaint, that's what FOIA says is confidential.
But if you didn't make a
If
complaint.
you don't make a complaint,
But if you're
it's not
accusing
confidential.
someone of something that they didn't do, that's not good
Well, you're
either.
Well, no, but I mean,
Speculating
well,
that they did
but
something.
wait a minute, but that's not a public document. I mean, it's one thing if somebody writes a letter and says, "Dear zoning administrator, you know, somebody has a nuclear waste facility on, you know, their property and they don't have any permits for it. Will you please come do something about it because all our farm animals glow in the dark?" Okay, that's confidential, whoever made that complaint. You just have to look for people that glow in the dark. But anyway, that belongs to the board. Now, if that same person tells somebody else, or somebody else finds out who the complainant was and writes a letter to the newspaper and says, you know, so-and-so is a real jerk for reporting that because we need nuclear waste facilities here, you know, or whatever they say, that's really not the public First of all, there wasn't a complaint to be made. I mean, what if you write a letter to the zoning administrator and say, "I saw X, is that allowed?" That's not a complaint to me. And that's kind of what happened. Or, "I saw this thing going up, do they have a permit?" That's not a complaint, that's just a question. So, you know, I don't know what the final form of the letter is. I'm okay with it if we say, if it's a confidential document, that is a complaint that was filed and they requested confidentiality, which the statute says you have to do, then members of the, government officials should not do anything that breaches the confidentiality, and I'm okay with that.
That's exactly what it's
Now,
about.
but
That's
could we
all,
do
but that's
this?
all, as long as
But-
we, that's all the further we get.
But rather than being specific to the incident, could we just make it a general statement of
Well,
like what
we-
you just said?
Yeah, we-
It's not specific.
Yeah, it's not, doesn't relate to a specific,
So
It's like prompted by-
a recent incident resulted in a member of the Board of Supervisors publicly identifying the individual whom he assumed had how about we leave that sentence off?
Okay.
Instead of making that.
How about just say recent events,
No, just
prompt us to write this
prompt
letter?
us to clarify, we want to clarify.
Right.
Rather than it's almost the same thing that you're doing there, as you're saying, okay, guess who it is. And then I can guess who it is, right?
Who was?
Well, I don't want to say it. But in other words, yeah, sure, I can guess who it is. No, but it's a member of the Board of Supervisors. Okay, well, how specific do you want to get?
I think it's irrelevant to the subject matter of the letter.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just saying, if we take out the thing that attempts to not identify the person.
Or.
but it does need to,
Okay.
it does need to be specific to the fact that it is an elected official of the county. It maybe doesn't have to apply to a certain board then, but the point is that it's improper for the elected official or an appointed official.
Because I would like to stay out of the realm of, I don't want to.
Yeah, whatever.
It should be generic.
Yeah, so can we do that?
Yes,
And how time sensitive is this thing?
Critical. I think we ought to continue the meeting until we finish.
No, but what I'm saying is, could we get a new draft of this that does what I'm hoping it will do, which is, redact any reference to specific persons
Well,
that were not.
because it is a draft, I would pass it on to the chairman to make the wording that is going to make him comfortable.
I'm going to
He's
water
busy
it.
with the annual report.
I'm going to water it down. Well, okay, that's right, I won't water it down.
Too much.
Okay, too much. Okay, by the
Just the right amount.
time I'm.
Can always add
Okay.
more water,
Okay.
remember.
Yeah, they'll be trying
Once
to.
you put it in, you
Okay.
can't take it out.
Okay. Is that okay, then I'll take a serious look
And
at it?
then report back at the next meeting.
That's why I said, well, that
You
doesn't
can
say.
kind of have this like
It says it's a
an
draft.
annual.
Like the
A
annual
monthly
report?
thing, a monthly thing.
So basically, okay, am I hearing you correctly, I'll review this? And
And
you,
why don't you review it, circulate it so we can look
Yeah, why
at
don't
it,
you
and
circulate?
then we can act on it.
okay.
But
And I'll make it
don't tell Gary Carey because he'll say we're making a decision.
No, I'm gonna redact his name from it.
No, you can send it around, but you just don't say, do you approve it or not? Just say, if you have any comment, here is the revised letter. If you have any comments you want to
Okay.
share with me, go
Okay,
ahead.
okay.
Otherwise, I'm sending it.
That's-
How about that?
and then-
Don't make it sound like we're
and then-
making a vote
and
without a
then
meeting.
Transpose the two.
Right, FOIA
That's
officer?
it, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Should we have a vote on it our next meeting?
How do you spell that?
We could ratify it later.
That's,
We could ratify it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. Thank you very much for that.
All right.
Okay, and annual report, I told you, I made a report on that. And then we're just gonna do the election of officers and the,
Okay. Should we take a break and just go right for it?
Let's go right through it.
let's go with
okay, well, I guess,
So we can go home and watch the end of the World Series. Oh, no, it's in the impeachment, whatever.
okay, so just to kick it off, I guess we'll start, and I guess I can run this?
Yeah, you can run it.
Okay,
I checked with Michelle and she said, just go ahead.
okay, because Michelle, you could come up here if you want. No, okay. So the first item, the first office to be filled is the chairman position.
Oh, we're gonna go from the top down, not the bottom?
I think that's how
We
we,
usually go to.
because that way the new chairman can take over immediately.
Well, except that, oh, yeah, okay.
Is there a nomination for chairman? Or if there's no nominations, we do away with the position?
I'll nominate Alex Sharp.
Are you
I'll
willing
second.
to,
Don't ask that, don't start asking that. That's a bad precedent.
Yeah, I'm willing to, I mean, to my limits of my capabilities,
second.
yes.
I already did second it.
Oh,
You
Jonathan.
thirdly did it.
Okay.
a third?
Who seconded it?
I did.
Are there any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor of,
Well, just
oh, is that?
we're declared
okay.
elected because there's no other.
We've closed it and
Okay.
elected you.
So I think the second item is vice chairman.
Chair.
And I heard a recommendation of Ron. Are you willing to do that?
Oh, gosh, I guess.
I mean, but I didn't nominate you, but I was just asking.
Hmm.
I didn't nominate you, but I was just asking.
Oh,
I was just gonna see, would there be a nomination for Ron?
I'll nominate him.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Is there any other nominations? Okay,
I move
all
the nominations be closed.
in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Didn't get a second.
I thought I did get a second.
Not on the motion. to
Oh,
nominate.
okay.
To close the nominations, all right.
Okay, so the next one is secretary.
and, I'll nominate Mr. Connick.
I notice you're not asking me if I'm willing to do it.
That's so scary. Is there a second to that?
Who nominated me?
Ron.
I'll second.
All right, thank you.
Is there any other nominations for the secretary? Is there a motion to close the nomination?
Motion to close.
Is there a second?
So moved.
You second.
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so with one objection, we approve that. That's
I would vote against him.
Then the next one.
Treasurer, right?
No,
Yeah.
the FOIA, FOIA.
We don't have a treasurer.
I nominate Ron to do FOIA. He can
To
carry,
serve in both.
he can carry both.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
I'll second
That's double duty.
Are there any other
it.
nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
Is there a second?
You don't want to do it again.
FOIA.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it or not do it, whatever anybody wants.
But, okay. Did we move, okay.
I think we got a nomination.
Okay, so move to close.
So moved.
Close.
Is there a second to the closing motion?
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Congratulations.
And then the planning commission?
Okay, we have an interesting situation going on that is the elephant in the room, I think, in regards to this nomination. In thinking about it the last couple of days, the nomination is strictly that, and it's up to the board of supervisors to
appoint.
confirm them, to make the actual decision. We're in a situation where I would like to see a change in our representation on the planning commission, but we also have the individual that I would like to nominate. His term is up, and the situation we face is if we nominate somebody and they are actually appointed, but then they are not reappointed to the board, what happens to the position at that point? In that, if the way you read the code, it could be that leaves it up to the supervisors to just.
No, they serve out the year of the time when their term
Well, that's-
expired, and then at the next annual meeting of the board of supervisors, they nominate somebody else.
That's what I was
But
trying to
if
clarify.
someone comes off the Board of Zoning Appeals, then doesn't their secondary appointments cease.
No, that's what I'm saying. The ordinance was amended a couple years ago, and it says now, it says, like, well, the fact of the matter is that I don't know who Ron's talking about, but everybody's term is up this coming year.
That's right.
During
So,
the calendar.
During the calendar, so, yeah, right, so, no matter who you nominate, you could have a situation where they either don't want to be reappointed, or
But
they
then
want to
how
be, but they appoint somebody else. So anyway, then, whoever it is, serves out until the next January when the Board of Supervisors meets, and then the Board of Supervisors says, so-and-so has been serving, but they're no longer on the board, so we have to put somebody else on.
So if such a situation came about, then would that individual,
They would serve out the year.
they would start out the year, but then who is then the spokesperson liaison between the BZA and the planning commission if that individual is no longer on the BZA?
I guess that person could serve
Well,
that
the
capacity.
person-
to some
First of
extent.
all, the other thing that.
Because, I mean,
They
Chris
could be a
and
liaison,
when I,
if
or
they're
when
not
Alex
on
has
the
been
board.
on the planning commission, then we come back and say, this is, we give our messages to the planning commission and we come back with updates and so forth, and then that individual
Well, I
is
think
not.
if that was to happen,
Now, is this person's identity protected?
they're in the nomination yet, but I'm just saying, theoretically, first of all, that person would, I think, have sort of an obligation to keep in touch with the board and make sure if there was some issue, like we've had with the comp plan, or like we have with cell towers, that the board wanted to express some viewpoint, even though they're quote unquote, they're representative on the board, would no longer be a member of the BZA, theoretically, they'd still have that, I think, obligation. But the other thing I want to point out to you is if you read the code and the ordinance both, they say
What
that
number is that?
170 I want to say 139 or 40. It says that it's in my letter, which I've actually put it down here. It's, I don't know, it's around when I sent around here, that stuff. And I sent her,
140?
it says, oh my goodness, this is in there. Wait a minute. What is it?
Looking for about the appointment from the BZA?
Yeah, here it is. The planning commission, it's 170-139. It says the membership of the planning commission in subsection 1, there may be one member from each magisterial district. It used to be, there shall be, but there may be.
Because there's not.
But it's all under, there may be one from each magisterial district, one member from the board of supervisors, and one member from the BZA. It doesn't say there shall be. It just says there shall be 7. So technically, there doesn't have to be a member on the plan of the BZA on the planning commission. It says there may be. That's the first part. Then the second section says, this is a 139, it says members shall be appointed, this was the part that was amended last year. Members shall be appointed for 4 years and terms of appointment shall be staggered. However, members concurrently serving on the Board of Supervisors or the BZA shall serve until at the next first annual regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. I didn't write that.
Well, that's like,
His or her successor is appointed to serve to the representative, as the representative member. So that's what I'm saying. They serve out their year. If for any reason they're off the board, and then they're off, then the Board of Supervisors has to appoint somebody else.
okay, because then I didn't get that.
Next January.
Then I didn't get the update, because mine, I
Yeah,
guess.
they did modify it.
Yeah.
They've
It's up
modified.
there, isn't that it?
They modified it a year
Okay,
ago.
is that it, or what is that? Oh.
Because it was before that technically 4-year terms, and our practice had been annual, but the ordinance said 4
Right,
years.
yeah, that was,
So-
all kinds of confusion.
So they rectified that last year.
So why don't you make your nomination?
So based on that, I think we have an understanding now or whatever, and I think with what's going on in the county right now in regards to the comprehensive plan and the desperate need for a rewriting of ordinances or whatever, that we need an individual that's going to be proactive in the position is willing to, make change in areas that need to be changed. And based on that, and Mr. Bird has done the job for a number of years or whatever, but quite honestly, that's not his basic nature on serving on the board as I've watched him, watched his service or whatever, and that he's a very good listener, and he will give opinions on what he's heard or whatever, but he doesn't tend to jump in and go for the change or whatever, and I think that's what we need now. And so I'm going to nominate David Connick to the position.
So does this mean we would get a definition of tourist homes?
Yes.
Or bust. Well, I will say that if I get it there for any reason, nobody knows what's happening at this point in time about any of these nominations. We've got we don't have a new judge. Nobody knows, the clerk doesn't know, none of the lawyers know who's going to be our kind of regular judge like we've always had. We always had the Fauquier judge. And now all the judges, save one, are from Loudoun County. And the one judge who's from Fauquier lives in Middleburg, like on the edge of Fauquier County, but in Middleburg. And all the judges are sitting and have their chambers in Leesburg. None of them are nobody's sitting in Warrenton at all. They let all the paralegals and all them all left. So there's nobody in Warrenton except whoever comes. It's like Rappahannock was for all this time.
A real circuit.
Since Judge Needs, they come when they're in court and then they leave. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but my sense of this, nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to take on Rappahannock, I don't think. So that apparently hasn't really been decided. And so all this process of appointments, I don't know, based on the letters that I got and my conversations with the clerk and so forth, is I don't know that they've really decided. And another layer of it is we just got a note day before yesterday that the chief judge who's been chief judge, he's not going to be chief judge after December 31st. There's going to be a new chief judge. One of the other Loudoun judges is going to be chief judge. So I have no idea what they're going to do. And the practice, as I think you all know better than me, has always been sitting members of the BZA, if they want to be reappointed, they just get reappointed. And I think I know of one who that didn't happen. But anyway, that's the general practice. Whether they're going to continue that or not, I don't know. It's not up to me. But if for some reason that were to happen and I don't get reappointed, and I'm the BZA's person on the planning commission, I will certainly undertake to represent the board. If the board, I'll keep in touch with you. I'll certainly report to you in writing or in person of what the planning commission decided to do on any given application, and come to the meetings and just report. Or I'll do it in writing, and if there's anything that the board wants me to do and lets me know that, if there's some, kind of lame duck or whatever period you want to call that, I will undertake to carry that message to the planning commission.
What about the secretary position?
Well, that's up to you.
That's something to deal with.
I don't know, about all that, because that would mean I'd have to come to the meetings. Even though I'm not a member, and, that would take some of the fun.
Would it make sense to defer this for a month and see what
Can't.
Well, we can't, because the
We tried that last
supervisors
time.
have to.
They will make their decision in January.
And our thing says the bylaws say that we have to do it in December at our annual meeting.
Right, and so we've got to change that. All right. I second the nomination for Mr. Connick to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Is it any other nominations? Is there a motion to close the nominations?
Motion to close.
Do a second to
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Now, I think the last item of business tonight is we need to set our annual meeting, our meeting schedule for 2020, I think it is. So we have a list here, I don't know, you've seen the list?
Yeah.
This needs to be up on
Yeah, we need to
December.
update the Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah, but they've got asterisks.
And when's the planning commission?
Well, we have two choices. We can either, I mean, what we have been doing is, since we had so many problems, and it's just sort of a pain in the neck for the poor flight officer, you know, to have to send out a notice of every meeting, we just post the schedule at the beginning of the year.
That's right.
So, and then it gets sent out to everybody on the list, and, which, by the way, I would remind you, I know the county is doing it, and Mr. Curry's not here, so the county has put an ad in the paper for 2 weeks that says, if you want to be on the list for next year,
So it's a fourth.
it's time to send in your notice. But that's really for the Board of Zoning, for the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. I mean, we're sort of separate. We have our own FOIA officer and all that, so I think you ought to probably, and I'll help you do that, I think you have the email list, right, of everybody who was on for last year. Send it out, or you can wrap it or something, but I think you need to send them all. There's no requirement that we tell people, hey, you gotta renew it. The onus is on people that wanna be on the list to say, I wanna be on the list.
Oh, that's notification.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, for the next year, but it expires an annual thing, so. Anyway.
So you probably.
You can do that or not do it, that's up to you, but I mean,
Okay.
we can, anyways, about the schedule, we can leave November and December.
Well, why don't we just, no, because
I'd rather do it, and then it's done.
Yeah, oh yeah, do this.
And then if we change it, then you have to send them a notice.
November would be the 19th, right? The Thursday?
Yeah, basically the same thing we've done this year, is that
Well, that's what we've done.
we do the Thursday
Okay.
after the planning commission meets.
Okay, so on the 19th? And then how about December, can we do it on the 17th? Let's see if that works.
That's my birthday.
So then you won't be here.
I might not be here anyway.
Oh, wait, November,
Did you get,
How do you get the calendar?
oh, I'm sorry, December
I'm
is,
gonna learn a new thing now.
It would be the
There's a
7th.
calendar right there.
yeah, the 17th for December? I mean, is that, maybe we could set that?
You got, you
Yeah, no,
guys have got the devices. I wanted to get it.
okay, so,
Calendar to access your location?
no, you don't have to go through all that. How about if we just set the calendar for the 4th Thursday of each month, this time, this place, except for November, which it would be on the 19th, which is the Thursday after the planning commission, the day after. And the same on the December, which would be the 17th.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adopt that schedule?
So moved.
Is there a second? There was a second? You seconded?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Wow, no dissent.
Michelle loves that, because she gets to stay here 2 nights in a row.
Okay, I think that's it. Rick.
They get us dressed up for this.
Okay, now this will get posted in this schedule. Oh, I'll do it. Okay.
Can I do this?
You do this.
Oh.
You have to send it out. You have to post it. Work with Michelle.
We're the secretary.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Well, I want to say something before we adjourn. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and like I just said, I don't know what's going to happen. But in case I don't get reappointed, I want to say to each and every one of you, thank you for putting up with me for the last 5 years. Ron, only for a couple of them. It hasn't always been easy. I have my own views about things, which isn't a surprise to anybody. I talk too long when I talk. And, but I feel like it's, for me anyways, and I hope for you all, in the grand scheme of things, it's been a very positive experience for me. I think I moved the board to where I think we're adhering to the ordinance a little bit closer than when I came on. We cleared up some issues like about who's entitled to show up and talk at hearings and procedural things. We wrote new bylaws, rules of procedure, and got them passed, and ironed out a lot of kinks on that. And so I consider it was a great honor to be on here. If I get reappointed, I'll be very grateful for that and continue to work as I have in the past. But I want to say thank you to all of you, and then it's been a real honor to serve with you in this job and in this capacity on this board. I think it's a real important group. As I've said here and in other public meetings, this group has more zoning experience than any other group in the county, all put together. Something like it's now must be up to like 80 years of combined experience, and that says something. And so, and I think we have been very instrumental in our own way about affecting how the comp plan has been done, thanks in part to Mr. Byrd and the letters that we wrote. I mean, I think we were the catalyst that made them stop and take another look at it, and I think as a result of that, it's going to be a much better and more effective document. I think we pointed out, although some actions haven't been taken yet, to identify things in the zoning ordinance that need work, and I just think in general, the board's really done a good job overall and been a much more an effective sort of spokesperson or something for the entity for the cause of zoning and better zoning and planning in Rappahannock County. And I'm glad to have been a part of that. And so I thank you all for putting up with me lately.
Thank you.
Okay, one other thing that just like people think about going into next month's meeting is that it'll be the first meeting of the year, and to sort of take some time to put together a list of goals that we would like to see happen in the next year. One of them that I just graduated from my course.
Oh, good.
I'm a DCA certified person now.
Cool. Okay.
You
And
have a badge?
picked up a lot. I've got badges at home for all sorts of things. but anyhow, the forms that we use right now, particularly for the public to fill out and stuff like that, which I know Michelle has done some work on, but I think that would be one goal in that having taken this course and looked at our forms, they're lacking.
Yeah.
And
Well, we had started with, a couple years ago, doing that as well as working on our procedures, because I had worked with Peter Luke and then with Art Golf on trying to get procedures tightened up, and so now that we've got that, so it's
the point
a
of
team
this is to
moving
actually
it all
have a
together.
list that sort of follows us on the agenda every month, so we can keep, so it's haunting us and keeps us on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that every, okay, well, thank you.
Wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Whatever they may be.
Yeah. Whatever they are, birthdays.
Chris, thank you.